So there's a new CBS News poll on impeachment that just came out, and we have some good news for Democrats. Now, everybody knows what my take on impeachment is. I went into, excruciating detail on that. But my take doesn't mean I'm not rooting for this to somehow help Democrats and help the left and hurt Trump. Of course I want that to be the case. I'm just skeptical if it'll actually unfold that way. But you can talk me off the ledge just a smidge here because we do have some good news. So this is post the Ukraine call news. Here are the new numbers on impeachment. So should there be an impeachment inquiry into President Trump among Americans? So this is all Americans, not necessarily likely voters, but just all Americans. Approve of the impeachment inquiry, 55%. Disapprove, 45%. So on that alone, I'm happy because remember, the poll before this, and literally I think it was like 5 or 10 days before this news scandal with the Ukraine phone call, impeachment was only at 36%. So for it to jump all the way to 55%, and I should say, there's another poll that came out, I forget who did it, but it had impeachment at 49%, don't impeach at 46%. So it's a plurality in that situation. In this situation, it's a flat-out majority. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing because what it means is there's not the knee-jerk reaction from people in the country of, oh, this is just, playing politics and this isn't serious. It turns out that a majority think no, he kind of had this coming. So perhaps details be damned, but you know what? At the end of the day, I think that's a positive thing because if that number had stayed at 36%, or let's say it only bounced up to 40%, I mean, that would have been like a terrible sign that if even early on in the process you couldn't get rally people to this idea, then that would have been just nightmare all day long. But since the numbers bounced up and we got a 55% number here, that's definitely a positive thing that, people are sick of Trump's nonsense and they don't think it's a crazy idea to move towards impeachment. Now, there are other numbers which I think are equally interesting here. Let me show you some of them. Impeachment inquiry into President Trump among all Americans, and this breaks it down between Republicans, Democrats, Independents. So obviously, 77% of Republicans disapprove of an impeachment inquiry into Trump, but 23% approve of it. So that, kind of breaks down along the approval lines within the party for Donald Trump. About 80% of the party likes him, about 20% do not. So the 20% that do not are in favor of an impeachment inquiry. For the Democrats, you have 87% of Democrats, almost 90% of Democrats approve of an impeachment inquiry, only 13% disapprove. Now this is interesting. Independents. It's 49% approve of it, 51% disapprove of it. So it's basically exactly 50-50. So, and that's probably because of there's about that many right-leaning independents and left-leaning independents. But that's interesting that the independents are split 50-50. And then here's one more slide for you that, again, I think is really important. President Trump's actions on Ukraine, and this breaks it down. Was the phone call proper? Was it not proper but legal? Or was it illegal? And here we have proper 28%. That's, his base, his hardcore base. Not proper but legal, 31%. And then illegal is 41%. So we have a plurality that says illegal, that's 41%. However, when you put together it's proper and not proper but legal, you do get 59% of the country. So, what I think the takeaway from this one is that using Ukraine and Ukraine alone in your impeachment inquiry is definitely a mistake. Because even though the overall impeachment numbers are now 55%, which again is good for the Democrats, for sure. At this point in time, that's wonderful for the Democrats. But having 59% basically say, the phone call, even if it was messed up, it's really not illegal. And some people saying 28% saying it's proper. There's nothing wrong with it at all. To put all your eggs in that basket is, I think, not the right move. And I think deep down, if you ask a lot of these Democrats, they'll admit that. I've seen many people who are hardcore supporters of impeachment basically say the same thing that I'm saying in terms of the limited scope of it, where they say, nah, even though I'm in favor of it, don't do it that way. So, and this poll is evidence of that, because you have only 41% saying, that it's illegal, and you have 59% saying it's either proper and legal or legal but improper. So anyway, that's the breakdown, the new polls on impeachment. Now, what will be incredibly interesting to see is what will happen as time goes on, because, I think these numbers are going to be all over the place. I really do, because I have zero trust in the Democrats to do this the right way. I have zero trust in them to not only come up with a good message, but even if they come up with a message, to have everybody on board and have like these top-down talking points where they're all unified. I don't think that's going to happen. And I also think, and I fear this because I've seen a lot of it recently, Trump and the Republicans, they have these really aggressive counter-arguments that they're making. And what I see in my little lefty bubble on Twitter is that there's a lot of like dismissing of it and conspiracy theories, Trump and Giuliani conspiracies. But what these people don't understand is that a lot of those arguments are really powerful because they cut right to what people care about. So, the counter argument from Trump is, hey man, I was actually trying to drain the swamp because Biden and his family are corrupt. I'm trying to drain the swamp. They're insanely corrupt. We can't let them get away with it. Like, that's his counter argument. Now, again, you might say he's covering his own tracks. True. You might say he's also corrupt. True. But that argument, hammering away over time, that I'm just exposing the corrupt people. I told you I was going to do this. I ran on lock her up. Obviously, I have no problem going after my political opponents. So, I was trying to get dirt. But there was no literal quid pro quo, but it doesn't matter because they're corrupt, and that's why I'm going after them. And I'm trying to drain the swamp, so just understand that. They're going to keep hammering that and 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 hammering that. And the Democrats, my guess, are going to be out there like, sir, the way you try to go about this issue is very impolite and uncivil, and I don't think that you followed the proper channels, and you need to do the right process, and you're violating all the rules and the norms, and therefore I don't think that it is going to be good. And if that's what the Democrats are doing, look out, because these numbers will begin to switch. For sure. And then at some point, you'll dip under 50%. At some point, who knows, you might be back to that 36% number, and then it's red alert and look out. But at least as of right now, the polls, this is like the honeymoon period for the impeachment inquiry, where 55% of the country, strong majority, are like, okay, yeah, let's go. Let's do this thing. You just got to hope that the Democrats won't screw it up, and you just have to hope that the dynamics won't unfold like I'm pretty convinced they will. And what I mean by that is best case scenario for the Democrats. It gets through the House, which is still a question mark, by the way. It's a question mark as to whether or not they'll even have a vote on it. They could do the inquiry and then just never bring it to the House floor for a vote. But let's say, for argument's sake, they do bring it to the floor. It's possible it dies right there on the House floor, but best case scenario for the Democrats, it gets through the House and then dies in the Senate because you need 2/3. And the evidence that I think is most compelling as to what will happen at that point is what happened with Bill Clinton, where his approval rating went up under the same situation. It got through the House, died in the Senate. His approval rating went up. Now, some people argue, well, yeah, but he was impeached over a blowjob, and lying on the stand about that. Who cares? That's why his approval rating went up. But again, this is why I submit to you guys that it matters how they make the argument, it matters what they're saying, and it matters what the Republican counter-argument is. And if the Republican counter-argument is what it's been so far, which is, yeah, okay, but Biden's corrupt. That's why I did this. That's going to land a hell of a lot more than you think it will. Okay? So I just want to warn everybody up front. But having said that, I have to concede at this point. As of right now, it is good news for Democrats. That is subject to change, and I think it will change. But as of right now, it's good. And it's not like when the impeachment inquiry was launched, it was immediate that everybody was like, nah, come on, this isn't going to work. You're wasting your time. This doesn't rise to that level. No. At this point, you have a majority of the country that says, go right ahead.